This is my favorite project that I've ever taught in an art class, and this was a group project with middle school students. I had each student draw a number 1 through 3 from a hat. Group 1 would be making a drawing about how they saw the past of the world that they currently live in. Group 2 would be talking about the current world that they see around them, and then Group 3 would be making a drawing collaboratively again. All of these are collaborative about the future of how they imagine the world could look like one day. I gave each group a sheet of questions that they could choose to answer while they were trying to develop their own compositions. I asked questions like, what about history interests you the most? Why is art that accurately represents historical events so important? Do you want to represent the world on a global scale, or do you want to represent your immediate communities and immediate local surroundings? And why? And what do these different things that you are choosing to depict say about you as a person? What do you think humans will wear in the future? How do you think buildings and the environment might look in 50 years from now, or in 150 years from now? And why? And what do you think brought about all of these different changes? Of course, we talked about things like dystopia and utopia, and I referenced The Hunger Games and Divergent because at that age, that is exactly the type of media that I was consuming. But I also wanted to bring in some more diverse ideas for how we can imagine future worlds that we live in together, and that is why I introduced them to the concepts of Afrofuturism and Indigenous futurism. I also showed them this artist, Titus Kaphar, who depicts art and art history through a more realistic lens that takes into account the real lived experiences of Black people in America. Group 1 chose to represent the past of how they see the world as talking about how not everybody actually had freedom in the way that it was advertised and taught to us in the history books originally. There's an X over the word freedom on the billboard, and there's stars, and there's red, white, and blue, but there's also the Statue of Liberty behind bars because not everybody was truly free. Group 2 chose to depict the current present of how they see the world as a coffee shop because you can really see people from all different backgrounds and ethnicities and walks of life in a coffee shop. And they depicted that through having people with different skin tones and different outfits and hairstyles, but also different flags and different pictures from places around the world as well on the walls. And the group that was tasked with representing the future chose to depict the heat death of the universe. One of my students was like, Miss Issa, I think I just figured out how to solve world hunger. And I went over there and I sat down with him and I was like, tell me more. And he said, well, in one little particle, I think it was like 1 gram or something of uranium, there's X amount of calories. And that's just way too much for any one person. So if you just get a lot of uranium and we divide it up into really small slices, each person can have the daily amount of calories that they need to survive. And I was like, you're onto something there. Keep going. Like, I'm encouraging this because wow, you were 12 and thinking of this. My students really enjoyed working on this project, and they also had so much fun at the exhibition, taking their parents through and having them stand on each of the 3 marked spots on the ground so that they could see the piece from each and every angle.